to another episode of the Edmonds Moms Room Podcast. I am Dr. Allison Fell, and I am interviewing Dr. Victoria today. So, as many of you know, Dr. Victoria recently gave birth to little sweet, not so little baby Asher, and he is 6 months, just had his 6-month birthday, and yeah, so Dr. Victoria, she started at Body Motion a while ago. How many years have you been here?
4 now.
4 years?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. 4 in January, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So 4 years.
I know.
And so over the course, before she conceived, we knew she was going to start trying to get pregnant. So it was really exciting because it was kind of like right when we brought Shockwave in.
Yeah, it was really cool timing.
I think you were one of the first people that we were like, we're going to do this and see if you get knocked up. And then it kind of just happened. And like the fertility protocol was born.
And it worked.
And because you had gone a few months without conceiving.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you want to share how long?
I think it was maybe month 3, I want to say. Yeah.
Okay. So totally within the normal time frame. So hard to say if it was Shockwave or not. She was also doing all the pelvic floor work even before that.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, that was really cool. So you started the Shockwave protocol.
Oh.
And so did Cynthia. We did an episode with Cynthia, and like that's really when I was like, this is the frequency you're gonna do. This is what we're gonna stick to. And so yeah, it just all kind of builds on each other, and that
really did. Yeah,
that was exciting. So she conceives, and did you feel pretty good through your first trimester from a physical standpoint?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
I felt really great, and which I needed because I was really sick, and so having to be in and out of the bathroom all day, every day, I was grateful that the rest of my body was able to really kind of support me through that, honestly.
Oh my goodness, that's so hard.
Yeah, it was something.
Did you find anything helpful for the morning sickness?
It was one of those things where it's maybe something might help that day, but then it wouldn't help the next day. So don't give me anything that's remotely ginger flavored at this point ever. I can never look at a ginger mint the same ever again. But we got through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a boy thing. I feel like I was only ever sick with Kano.
Yeah.
Like he made me that, I had that nausea. So maybe with your next, if it's a girl.
Knock on wood. I couldn't imagine feeling that sick with a toddler.
Yeah.
But that's how it goes sometimes.
But people do it. Excuse me.
They do it every day. That's what I keep telling myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. You're incredible.
Oh.
You were working, seeing a full patient load, and and then so got through the first trimester, and then we were like, Victoria, it is time. We need to start the pregnancy protocol.
Yes.
And really prep your pelvic floor, prep your pelvis. What that entailed was a lot of internal work where we really work through the pelvic floor muscles, all 3 layers, working on improving the elasticity of the muscle. So it improves the flexibility of how much it can open. When you improve the flexibility of how much it can open, you automatically increase the amount that it can contract. Although we're not working on contraction, if you're worried I'm going to be too weak or that's going to make me weak, it does the opposite. Opening the pelvic floor improves the lengthening, which we call eccentric strength. And when you have eccentric strength, then you have a lot more ability to get a concentric contraction. And so that is a really cool phenomenon. But it's that motion of getting lengthening that allows the baby to come through the pelvis, allows vagina to open unrestricted. It allows the pelvis to open more. So the pelvis is going to open during a vaginal delivery because of hormones like relaxin, because of hormones like progesterone, and it allows that flexibility to start occurring in the joints. Then we get that opening during the delivery process. But if your pelvic floor is cemented or your glutes and adductors are really tight, and those are the muscles on the butt and on the inner thighs, and if those are really tight, then they don't allow the pelvis to fully open. Mm-hmm. And so part of the pregnancy protocol is really working through all of these muscle groups to make sure that you have great elasticity and mobility of the pelvic floor, and then also have mobility of everything that connects to the pelvis so that the pelvis can have the best chance at opening during the birthing process.
And thank goodness it did.
Yay! You have to share Asher's birth weight. We'll get to the story.
Oh my gosh.
We'll get to the story.
I'm excited to tell.
But so we go through your pregnancy and things are feeling pretty good.
Yeah.
And how often did you get treatment?
Oh man, I tried to get on the schedule. I mean, I feel like I was really consistent for the second half of my second trimester, just because that sickness really didn't let up until I was close to that 20-week point.
Okay.
But then, so once we got to that point, I was like, okay, we need to like switch gears. Yeah. And so I was coming in. Some of them even come in twice a week to almost try to kind of catch up a little bit.
Yeah.
Because truthfully, like I was just getting pelvic floor PT even before I got pregnant.
Right.
And so I was pretty shocked, just even in those couple months, how different my body felt. Just all the hormones and everything that had already changed at that point. So after that very first visit, I was like, okay, we need to get into this and we need to really hit it hard and make sure that we're going to accomplish our goals, right?
Yeah.
And so thank goodness, because I really felt good physically, like really most of my pregnancy, truthfully, which I was so grateful for, because I had a big baby and I gained a lot of weight pregnant too. And so I really needed the support of all of my muscles and my joints and much help that I could really get, truthfully.
You want to tell everybody how much weight you gained?
I gained at least 50 pounds.
Really?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I stopped weighing myself.
Good call.
Once we got
to
maybe like 36, 37 weeks, I was like, I think I've seen enough.
Yeah.
I get the points.
Yeah.
We get it.
Yeah.
And that's totally fine. I mean, your body's going to do what it's going to do.
Exactly.
And I was comfortable with it. I was mostly just really focusing on, I wanted my joints to feel really good. I didn't want to start to go from now I have back pain, now I feel it in my knees, and now I want to feel it in my feet. I didn't want to go have that be my experience.
Yes.
And so I wanted to be as proactive as possible.
Right. And doing this work is proactive for that. So I'm glad.
Absolutely.
I'm glad that you bring that up. I'm also glad that you just shared how much you gained weight-wise. I didn't weigh myself with Jayla because I was already heavy when I got pregnant with her, and I didn't want to know. I didn't want to know. I weighed more at the beginning of her pregnancy than I did at the end of my others, and I just didn't want to have that experience, and I kind of just let it be. And I hate the data, and like especially when doctors are like, you should only gain 25 pounds or only gain 30 pounds. It's like, you're growing a human.
Right.
The body is gonna do what the body's gonna do. And also, when we're all gaining this much weight, but yet the research is showing that we're protein deficient in our third trimesters and fourth trimesters, like there's a reason we're consuming calories. And maybe the protein deficiency, we're not getting the right amount of nutrition. I don't know. But like there's a reason we're putting on the weight. Yeah. And like it's not permanent. Like it's more than just baby. It's the amniotic fluid. It's the blood volume.
Oh,
it's
the fluid. So much fluid.
Let's talk about your fluid.
Let's get into the fluid a little bit.
Want to share?
I mean, I was pretty surprised just how much puffier everything started to really get. Looking back at my pictures now, I was actually talking to one of my girlfriends who she was trying to get an idea of, how much weight she should expect how much bigger she's going to get.
Yeah.
And so I had to look back at my pictures to kind of see, how my body was changing, and I could just see like in my hands and in my face, and you really do. You just get so. I think I probably took off my rings maybe like month 7, I want to say, and I couldn't get them back on until at least 2 or 3 months postpartum. But man, and then of course once labor began, then you really see how much fluid you have abdominally, and it's pretty impressive actually, really how your body is really doing what it needs to do.
Yeah. Okay, so I skipped over this, and I want you to go back to you were like, this was in line with the goal. So like you just said, your experience, you wanted to make sure you didn't have knee pain. You wanted to make sure you didn't have feet pain.
Yeah.
You knew what to do to prevent that. Most of our listeners don't know what to do to prevent that. So just to make it really clear, working with a pelvic expert physical therapist, someone who's going to balance all the muscles around your pelvis, that's what keeps your joints pain-free. That is the golden ticket. It's not about how much you go to the gym.
No.
And because the tighter you are, the harder it's going to be on your joints. And so working with someone who can help read your body and balance your body is what's going to take the stress off of your joints, and just leave you feeling really good. I talked a little bit about in another episode with Dr. Katrina, her birth experience and how we connect so much mentally to the pelvic floor, for training the pelvic floor. And we can dive into that too. But the other thing I think it's important to know is Dr. Victoria has also said in line with the goal. So your goal was to have vaginal delivery. Yeah. Tell us about your plans.
Yeah, so my birth plan, I really wanted to have vaginal delivery. I wanted to have a nice efficient birth. I was hoping for a nice efficient pushing stage, and I wanted
aren't we all?
to move through labor as effectively as possible. But I also really wanted to spend a lot of my time laboring at home. I knew that was going to be where I was most comfortable, and being able to be relaxed and comfortable was something that I knew was going to be important to me. So I wanted to make sure that I had a really nice, good space. And so I had a doula there with me, and I really worked hard to make sure that I was able to kind of redirect or connect with my body through those contractions and any of those moments where that felt a little bit over the top or uncomfortable, that I wanted to be able to kind of reframe them, I guess. And so laboring at home was really my number one thing, was to do that.
Yeah. And then you were also delivering at a birth center with a midwife, and that was all part of the game plan.
Yeah.
And when you decide that you're going to birth at a birth center, that means you're opting out of an epidural.
Right.
So you don't have that kind of pain control. Mm-hmm. You get to use your breath as your pain control.
Yes.
Let's dive a little deeper. I think this is a cool question. How did you find your doula?
I took a birth class, and so I actually, from the birth class educator, she gave me a couple doula recommendations.
Nice.
And then it actually there was a little bit of overlap there, because the company was advertised at my birth center. And then it just ended up, it felt so just like serendipitous that my doula knew my midwife.
Okay.
They had, actually my midwife had delivered my doula's baby.
Okay.
And they had worked together as well. And so it just felt like very, it all just felt perfect, really.
Yeah. Oh, nice. You want to shout out your doula?
Lee McBride.
Aww.
Couldn't have done it without you.
We'll take her, because I think it's a good recommendation.
Yeah.
Like, you want to get recommendations from people, and
Absolutely.
You obviously have to vibe with people. Did you interview multiple doulas?
I did. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I interviewed a few, and you're so right. There was this kind of like connection. I mean, yeah, like you want people to have like lots of experience and all of that, but then there also kind of just is this like personality, vibe, feel. I want people to. I wanted my doula to feel not mothering. I knew I didn't really want that feel, but I wanted her to feel like she was kind of like my partner, like my teammate. And I really wanted somebody that was going to be able to say, okay, now it's time to leave, or now it's time to change positions. I wanted to be able to kind of take my, my brain out of it a little bit, and just kind of like focus on my own body, and let somebody else kind of be able to redirect, or kind of like nudge me in a direction that I should go. And she was really perfect for that, truly.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good statement. I feel like as a doctor, you hold so many people's stories, and so it is hard to keep your brain like so high vibe, so focused on your labor, and not go down the like, oh, but this client had that during this experience, and this client had this, and is that going to be my story? And oh God, am I getting closer to a C-section? Like, these are things that go through the brain when you're in labor, especially when you hold so many people's stories like we do all day long, every day. We're talking to people who've had traumatic deliveries and or didn't come here during pregnancy, and so they've had these wild experiences with a lot of trauma, physical trauma and mental trauma, right? And so we hear those stories, and there comes a time and a place. When I was pregnant with Jayla, I stopped working, I think in April. I was due in July. Yeah. Part of that was my hands didn't work anymore. But also, it was my brain. Like, I was like, I need to just be clear and free of other people's stories right now, and just like fully focus on myself. And thank goodness I had you and Dr. Riley to like take the reins and treat all the clients and carry it on. At the time, now we have so many people.
I know.
But so I guess what I think is beneficial, especially I don't know how many of our listeners are like healthcare people, but you always have those friends that tell you their stories. So how did you keep your mind like focused on like, this is the goal, this is the plan, how am I going to stay high vibe? What was your mindset in your labor?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's so true too. It's really not just healthcare providers. I think just as a pregnant person, people just want to connect and share their stories, and they want to tell you what it was like for them. And so even if it could just be at the grocery store and someone's going to tell you about their experience. And sometimes those experiences, they can be positive or negative depending on what happened, and that can affect you in any number of ways. And so being able to kind of keep yourself grounded for that, I think was really important for me. And I don't know if it was just a lucky month, but I had lots of people delivering the same time that I was, and so there was a lot of births that I had kind of in my mind going into my own birth for sure, which was kind of fun, definitely.
Yeah.
Once it got down to the wire, you're like, man, I really need to focus in on mine, which is why I stopped working about 38 weeks. I want to say 37 or 38, and so I really used those last couple of weeks to really kind of focus in on myself and in my own body and my own journey, really kind of just preparing at home alone a little bit, kind of in solitude in a way.
Yeah.
But I think that was actually a really great thing that I did, because a lot of the birth really is, you have your support people there, but you're doing it alone.
Yeah.
It really is kind of just between you and your baby and your body, and so being able to just kind of shut out everything was really helpful.
Yeah, that's such a good, that's so important.
I loved it, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that just speaks the truth, though. It really is a solo process, and it's a journey that you go on.
Yeah.
And so the more that you believe in yourself, yes, a support system is obviously amazing, and
for sure,
some people need more support than others, but it's a journey that you go on. Your partner can't deliver this baby. No. Your pelvic floor physical therapist can't deliver this baby.
There's no passing the baton to the next person.
You have to do it yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's the confidence that going through our birth prep protocol gives you. It gives you that confidence. I know my pelvic floor can open. I know my pelvis can open.
Yeah.
There's not a second thought that even if my baby's 15 pounds, this baby's coming out of my vagina. My pelvic floor is going to open and stretch. My pelvis is going to stretch.
Yeah.
That's the evolution. We're stuck in a forest. This is going down, right?
Yeah. There you go. This is happening.
It is. So I just think that's a good, it's so true. It's a solo journey. Yeah. And you come out a completely different person.
Oh yeah, it's so transformative.
Yeah. I remember just in the last couple of weeks, I had the honors of being your therapist. Yes. And getting to treat you, and that was super fun for me. And you would just show up. I know you felt like crap, but you just looked you're always so put together.
Oh
you
my
had
gosh.
your I'm okay, you do you. She just, if you know Dr. Victoria at all, she is always dressed to the nines. She just has it all together.
Oh.
And so it was fun to be a part of those last few, moments. You might have felt disheveled and but it was such, you just wore it so well, and I'm excited for your next one.
Thank you. I was definitely soaking up the bump. I couldn't wait to show. I couldn't wait to get to dress up the bump. It was really fun. I loved being pregnant.
Yeah. Wow.
Even
with the sickness for 20 weeks.
It's weird.
I know.
It was.
It's weird. It's messed up evolution.
But it was also a really good opportunity to force myself to rest and relax. Yeah. Sometimes it can be hard to lay on the couch and do nothing.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of well, this is what you need to be doing right now. It's just resting and prioritizing rest. And so there were some positives that came out of that too, for sure.
Yeah. I love that. Okay, should we get into it? The nitty gritty?
Yes.
You guys want to know Dr. Victoria's birth story?
What happened?
It's so good, and I'm just super honored that you're going to share it. So take the stage.
Thank you.
Tell us how baby Asher came into this world.
I love telling the story. And so like I said, I took a couple weeks off before I gave birth, and it was, so in those weeks, I definitely got to experience a lot of the false or the prodromal labor, the contractions that would kind of start, and then they would kind of fizzle out. I'd get woken up out of my sleep, and I would think, okay, now here we go, this is happening. And of course, my mom delivered early, and people are like, oh, it's looking at my belly, oh, the baby's for sure gonna be here any minute now. And so I didn't really know what to expect, right? So there was a lot of kind of start and stop for those last couple weeks. And then he was born the day after his due date. So I went to bed that night, and I'm wondering again, am I going to wake up pregnant, or am I not going to wake up pregnant? What's going to happen? And so about maybe 4-ish in the morning, I turn over in bed, and then we get the gush of water. And so I had a high leak, and so if you don't know what that is, you don't get the big movie gush, but it's kind of more like a trickle, almost as if you were to pee your pants. Fortunately, I did not experience urinary leaking during pregnancy. But at the end, I was like, well, maybe was that what that was? Because I had just rolled over in bed. And I was like, well, is that my water? Was that pee? Not really totally sure. And so I just kind of like laid there waiting to see what was going to happen. I got out of bed and then it was very obvious that my water had broken. But still, again, it's 4 a.m. and I'm thinking this is my first time. Maybe this is going to be going on for, a day or longer. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to really kick myself for not resting while I can rest. So I really tried to get myself back into bed, put a towel down, went back to sleep. And I was able to stay there maybe for, at least a couple more hours. Because it really wasn't maybe until, let's say, like 9 a.m. until things started to really feel more of those like rhythmic contractions. And that was for me a big moment. Cause I was like, oh, something's happening now. Before, after like weeks of something might be happening, nothing's happening. Might be happening, nothing's happening. So that was a very exciting moment. I was like, okay, now I start to really feel that rhythm that people are talking about. But it all still felt really manageable. And it really stayed like that for a few hours. And so I was able to kind of time my own contractions, just kind of hanging out on the couch while I was doing a lot of cleaning. I really needed like the house, like my like nice relaxing space to be nice and clean and pristine. And so I'm putting dishes away and I'm trying to vacuum and get everything all sorted. My husband's like, please sit down, please stop doing things. Things felt just like really good, really manageable. I felt like we were on a really good path. And maybe it wasn't until the afternoon where things got a little bit spicier. And I felt like now I needed more of like my husband to support me during the contractions. I needed him to be the one that was timing things. Because at that point I had already reached out to my midwife. I had reached out to my doula. But it was just Anthony and I at home. And so we were just sending all this data, to everybody, just to kind of let them know, how we were doing at that point. Everyone, my doula was going to come over at some point, but the midwife was like, oh, I might see you today, I may see you tomorrow. So we really don't know what's going to happen yet.
I like that. They didn't put you on a clock. They were like, just hang out with your husband at home.
Yeah, totally.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it all felt like very chill.
Shout out your midwives in the birth center.
Oh, yeah, so I was at Puget Sound Birth Center, and Heather was my midwife. Oh. Yeah, she's fantastic. So if you get a chance to work with her, you'll love her.
I hear amazing things about her.
Yeah, she's very, very special person. And so I remember distinctly because it was 3 o'clock. And that's when I'm like, okay, I want to get into the shower. I want to get into some water, and let's see how that feels. Because things are starting to get definitely a lot more uncomfortable. I need a little bit more help to stand and move around the house. So we get upstairs, get in the shower. I'm texting my doula Lee from the shower. It's time to come. I need your help. And she was there pretty quickly after. So we had a good shower. I'm glad that I got in there and kind of felt that it was actually very refreshing. We have a nice bench there, so I was able to just kind of like sit in the shower, let the water fall on me, and it felt amazing. I loved that moment. But once I got out of the shower, definitely I was like, okay, this is no longer early labor. This is very active. Things are moved pretty quickly because probably from maybe like 3 to 5, so in about like 2 hours, we were already on the way to the birth center.
Okay, talk us through that a little bit, because we talk to our clients about like it is so essential that you stay relaxed, that you keep breathing. So are you working on your breath during this time? Mm-hmm. And then how are you like keeping yourself calm and in that state as you transition to the birth center?
Yeah, so I would say first distraction worked, and then I moved to music and meditation, and then the music was too distracting, and so I just needed to focus on like my breath and just really tapping into those low guttural vocal tones felt so good to me during those phases. And so a lot of rocking, a lot of humming, a lot of low, little animalistic, you might kind of say, tones, but that all felt so good and so right to me at that point. And what was your other question? Like
what? So as you transition to the birth center,
okay.
So you're out of the shower. You're gonna have to get in the car.
Yes.
And we always tell people, like, a lot of times wherever you're going to deliver the baby, sometimes you'll kind of regress in labor a little bit,
right,
just because of the sympathetic nervous system ramping up, because you're transitioning, you're moving your body.
100%. Yeah.
So how did you, what were the thoughts going through your mind as you get in the car, as you're driving to the birth center? How are you staying in that like down-regulated, relaxed, parasympathetic stance?
So I was just, I felt that I really just like sunk into my body. Like I couldn't even really tell you what happened on that 18-minute drive to the birth center. I remember towards the end, we were still at home, and my doula had called the midwife so she could listen to me. She wanted to hear what I sounded like to see, is it time to come in? Could she maybe labor a little bit longer? And she thought, based on how I sounded, maybe I could go another like half hour maybe. I probably lasted another like maybe 3 minutes. I could tell my body was so ready to push. I could feel that pressure. And so I was like, nope, it's time to go. And so I was actually the first one out the door. It was me, and then my doula and my husband were shortly behind me. And we had used the E-stem, the electrodes on my back, and that actually was really helpful in the car ride, because I really, really loved all like the counter pressure that they provided, really helping to kind of support and stabilize around my hips with each of those contractions. So that E-stem felt really good.
Awesome.
during that time. And so on the car ride, my eyes were closed the whole time, and I was just in the car. I was feeling those contractions. I felt a lot of that low pressure. I could tell that we were there, and thank goodness it was only, again, I only remember having 3 contractions, so I don't know how quickly we got there, but we got there pretty quick. It felt like it was just like a blink of an eye and we were there. And we got to our birthing suite, walked in right away, and just kind of sat on the bed and hung out for again another contraction or 2. And by the time that they had looked at my vitals and Asher's vitals and saw that we were doing well, I was 9.5 centimeters dilated.
Yeah.
So I must have at that point transitioned in the car, which did feel a little bit intense, but thank goodness
a little bit intense.
But thank goodness to the breathing and just trying to keep my body as relaxed as possible.
Love that.
And I think just like keeping my eyes closed. Like, I remember there was a couple times I would just kind of open my eyes just to peek to see where were we on 405. Okay, we're off we're on the on ramp. We're off the exit. Okay, kind of get an idea. But I just let my husband get us there, and I just kind of focus on me.
Yeah, I love that for you. And I think that's one of the things I talk about in the birth prep class all the time. I'm like, just put sunglasses on or wrap a towel around your head when you're leaving your house to go to wherever you're delivering.
Totally.
Just to try and stay in that trance as much as you can.
Yeah. But I cannot tell you how happy I was when they checked my cervix and it was time to push. She was like, okay, there was just like a little cervical lip there that was preventing you to going to 10. So at that point they were like, let's get her in the tub and let's go and let's get this party started.
Yeah. I love that for you.
Thank you.
Did you have like the rectal pressure? Like, did you feel the urges to push even at 9.5 centimeters? Like,
absolutely.
You felt like your body could have kind of probably gone through that lip.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And we did. She said to just push through it, and it was no problem for us. But yes, I remember in that car ride feeling so much of that rectal pressure, because I kept waiting to feel that at home, or like my baby was sunny side up, so I was expecting to feel a lot more like back labor, which I didn't feel that either. I was just waiting. So I was waiting to see something. I felt a lot of pressure on my pubic bone and in the front of my abdomen, and that's what I remember feeling the most. And I think because of his positioning facing my belly instead of towards my spine, I had my breaks, my rest weren't rests. So that was kind of the one thing that they were really trying to help with, like positioning to get him in a more ideal position so that my contractions continue to be more rhythmic. We kind of lost a little bit of that rhythm, but that was just my body really trying to work to get him in the right spot. But that rectal pressure, I remember, that definitely came once I got into the car. I felt like I felt like I was almost sitting on him.
Yeah. That's great. That's how you know they're there, when you're sitting on them, right?
That's right.
I mean, that's a lot on the tailbone to bear, but fantastic. Okay, so you get in the tub.
Yeah.
Tell us about this.
Yeah. So
Walk us through.
So I get in the tub, and I'll preface to say that I really had no intention to have a water birth. I was open to getting into the water. I like taking baths, but I remember feeling really hot. So I wasn't totally sure if I was gonna like being in like warm water or how that was gonna feel. I figured I would maybe labor in the tub a little bit, then I would give birth at, and I'd practice some of the birthing positions, anticipating to give birth in the bed. That is not at all what happened. I got into that water, and the water felt really good, and I was able to get into the right position to help advance past that cervical lip. And I must have been, we were probably at the birth center for 20 minutes, and I got right into the water, and then he was born 20 minutes later.
Okay.
Which was fantastic. So we didn't spend a lot of time there. Actually, I remember Heather's telling me that we spent more time doing paperwork after the birth than I actually was having the baby, which was one of the goals for sure too. I just wanted to kind of being at home as much as possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember loving how weightless I felt, and I guess I shouldn't say I was totally weightless, because it was really, now that I look at the picture, it was my husband. He was holding me up the whole time by my arms, kind of in this kind of elevated bridge position. And Heather was working hard to get him to turn, because he was wrapped around in his cord, and I think that was probably what was preventing him to turning when we were doing all the spinning babies, all the walking, all the things, and he would turn, but he wouldn't stay there. And so she was working hard, under the water to get him where he needed to be. And yeah, it was just a handful of pushes, and he was there.
Yeah. Okay, so were you able to use your breath to push him out?
Yeah.
Okay, what did that look like?
A lot of low, open. I used my voice a lot, low tones, so I really tapped into some of what I was using just to kind of get through some of those contractions once things got a little bit spicier. And it was incredible to feel how much he moved, even just with that breath. Because we talk about this all the time, it's the uterus that's really, those muscles that are really contracting and bringing the baby out, down, through the pelvic floor. But you still kind of have this feeling that you really want to kind of force him out still too.
Yeah.
And so trying to kind of control my body to remain relaxed.
Yeah.
While all that muscle activity is happening in your belly, that was pretty challenging to do for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, being able to just kind of okay, I'm gonna focus on my throat. That was probably the biggest piece for me, was just kind of really focusing here, letting everything else below my chest kind of do what it's going to do.
Yeah.
And that was really where I focused all my attention on.
Yeah. The breath is so powerful. And you don't even realize how much of a muscle it is to help guide the uterus down, I just think it's so needed. And, a lot of people go through labor and can't get their babies out vaginally, or they'll be up, higher, or they're not fully dilating. And I do fully believe that if the pelvic floor is conditioned enough and you have that opening, then the uterus can do its job.
Yeah.
But if the pelvic floor is cemented and super tight, and like the pelvic floors we meet all the time, all day long, then it's either going to be, there's going to be some damage there with tearing, severe prolapsing, lots and lots of breath holding and pushing.
Yeah.
And or it's going to turn into a C-section.
Right.
And so, it's such a difference maker. And I'm super proud of you. I think it's amazing what you did.
Thank you.
So baby Asher comes into this world, 3 pushes, 3 breaths, and tell us how much he weighed. And
oh my goodness. So he was 9 pounds, 1 ounce, and he was 20, I should know how long he was. He was very long. I'd have to look at it now. He's a big boy. But he was perfect. He was. I still remember when they put him on my chest, and I would just this rush of relief. But also a little bit of so we're done?
yeah.
It just, because it went by so fast. I couldn't believe, I think from beginning to end, it may have been 7 or 8 hours or something. Okay. And it just felt like such a 40+ week build up, and then it's just over in an instant, and then here's your baby. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he had a lot of meat to him.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
And to share, you didn't tear?
No. Yeah, my pelvic floor held up miraculously well, I would say. Yeah, no tearing. no stitches. Didn't really have to worry much about the perineum at all, actually.
Yeah, great. So does that mean you don't need pelvic floor work postpartum?
Oh, no. No.
Tell us.
Yeah, so what I tell my clients, and what I definitely now have experienced, what I believe to be true, is that a lot of what people are dealing with in their postpartum isn't just the effects of what happened during your delivery. Like, a lot of these things are happening during your pregnancy.
Yeah.
And so regardless of, there are some people, right, like whether their baby, if they aren't able to have a vaginal delivery because of baby's position or other issues, that sometimes it can be a little bit disheartening when you put on all this work during your pregnancy. But the truth is that all of that work you're doing for your pregnancy is still equally as important, regardless of how the baby is born.
Yes.
Because of a lot of times, again, it's not just the tear or just a long pushing time, and that's why you have these pelvic floor dysfunctions. But your body has changed over a year, truly.
Yeah.
And so all of those changes, that's a lot of times what people are dealing with in their postpartum period. A lot of those things that happened in your first, second, and third trimester. It's not just those 24 hours that we're trying to rehab. It's the whole year.
It's the whole year. All the body changes.
Yeah.
And so then to think that you're just going to go into an exercise class at 6 to 8 weeks is kind of a joke.
Oh, yeah.
But the body is like so miraculous at compensating that like people get away with that, you know, and especially like you want to get back, you want to feel normal, you want your energy back. So you're back in Pilates, you're back at F45, you're doing Orange Theory, and you're 6-8 weeks postpartum, and like, okay, but like your body's compensating and you need to address like getting your core strong again. And so I think that's where it's like you, regardless of how this baby came out of your body, even though you had the most perfect delivery, little trauma, you were strong through your pregnancy, you need to rebuild your core.
Yeah.
We need to work on getting more hydration to your pelvic floor.
Yes.
We need to continue to build your core.
Yeah.
So things can come back together, so your pelvis can come back together. Because the reality is, if you didn't do this work, then like you're probably going to be walking harder on one leg than the other. Your SI joint might not be fully lined up, and that's going to, you might not notice it now, or 10 years down the line, maybe not in your next pregnancy, but in 10, 15 years, that could show up as like severe hip pain. You'll need cortisone injections, turn into the other side knee pain where you're going to need injections and then a knee replacement.
True.
Like, this is the soliloquy that we talk about all the time. And that is why it is just so important to get postpartum recovery. So
absolutely, because I would say because it was kind of tempting. I felt. I don't want to say I felt good, immediately postpartum. Like, I felt like I'd been run over by a truck a little bit. Like, your whole body is sore, like everything, like all of your muscles are working so hard for this goal. But I didn't have, the stitches. I didn't have a lot of those other things to deal with. So I would say what I remember the most is that there'd be just kind of almost like different parts of my body that felt so much weaker than others. And so it's like, well, maybe my glutes could have gotten me through like a Pilates workout, but like my core wouldn't have been able to. Like my inner thighs wouldn't have been able to. I think there was limiting factors here and there that wouldn't have allowed me to work at the same level. I think that there may be because I may have looked like I had been healed or walked away unscathed. I could still feel it in my body. There was still a lot of work that needed to be done before I could, even that I'm still doing, even six months postpartum. That still needs to be done.
Totally. Is the book up here? Oh yeah, there. Perfect. Well, grab it. In Restore Your Body After Kids, The Secret to Avoid Peeing Your Pants and Achy Joints as You Age, you can read about how I messed up the first 2 postpartums and created a lot more issues for myself because I didn't have a team supporting me, and I was a pelvic floor PT, but you can't do the work yourself.
No.
The work that needs to be done, you can't really find on an online program.
Yeah.
I can't do enough exercises to rebuild the way that I need someone to help guide my muscles to rebuild, to help work out the scar tissue that happens, to work out and get my organs back into the right places. You just can't do that yourself. And I think that's the benefit of working with a pelvic expert physical therapist.
Okay.
And Yeah, so you can read about how I messed that up 2 times in a row. And then finally for the third one, I was like, I'm going to do this right and take my own advice. But even for the third one, like, I didn't even start. I came and saw you right after Jayla, maybe 6 to 8 weeks. But then, like, I didn't start my course of, like, rehab until, like, 6 to 8 months. I think it was 8 months more so. And I had already started, like, kind of rebuilding my workout routine and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I had to pair it with this. And I mean, I'm 3, and Jayla's going to be 4 this summer. And I just started doing, like, more crunching abdominal work. Just started. But I have a prolapse.
I'm keeping my head down. Yeah.
I have a prolapse. Crunches aren't, like, the end-all be-all, but, like, I do need some flexion strength at the end of the day. And I'm just starting that process at 4 years, like, nearly 4 years.
Yeah.
But it wasn't safe enough for me to do it before then. And I have to be super cautious that I'm activating my TA, I'm using my breath in order to be able to do that crunch, So I'm not creating more of a prolapse, and I'm not, blowing out my core.
Hey, I get it. It's so hard to be patient. Like, I definitely, like, as much as I, like, love being a mom and, like, this new life, like, there's a part of me that really yearns for familiarity. And so getting back into the things that you used to enjoy, like exercise or whatever that thing is, like, there's a big push and desire to do that. And so there's been times where I really had to kind of, like, tamper myself down a little bit. Like, I finally got back into Pilates classes, but there's still a lot of modifying that I have to do. And I have to make sure that I tell the instructors that I just had a baby this year or late last year, and so I'm doing a lot of modifying because they sometimes they look at me and they're like, oh, well, you should be able to do this, or maybe they knew me from before and they're like, oh, okay, you're fine, you're ready. And it's like, I'm 6 months postpartum now, but I didn't get I could do these exercises in the back of this book. I was able to do that in those first 2 months. But it wasn't until maybe month 3 to where I could maybe do like a 10, 15, 20 minute Pilates, exercise, which is my chosen exercise is Pilates. And so it took a lot of time to be able to work up to do like a 50, 60 minute class. And even then, like, I'm taking lots of breaks. I'm still, it took a while before I could do a lunge, and lunges are still pretty challenging for me still. My planks are still very, very modified. A lot of things are, and you just have to kind of be okay with that, and that can be hard to do when you see the rest of the class doing everything and leaning back into these really cool poses that I want to get on the reformer and do these things, but you just have to be patient with your body.
Totally. Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, of course.
It's so
Thank
good.
you for asking.
Yeah. Anything else you want to leave the listeners with?
Oh gosh. I mean, I would say, I guess, too, it's just, like, thinking back again, because now my baby is 6 months old, it's, like, how quickly time goes. Like, I feel like time doesn't even exist in the newborn phase. And so I can definitely identify where, sometimes it can feel like it takes a little bit of time to get back into things that are, feeding your soul, like your rehabbing your pelvic floor. And so being able to, I want to encourage everyone to really prioritize that. Like, I know how fast 4, 5, 6 months can go by, but a lot of things, can happen in your body in that time that could have been prevented if you were working with a pelvic floor therapist that really can help to keep you on the right track. Because it's hard. It's hard to really make the time for yourself. It's hard to not just, maybe I'll just push through it and I'll just kind of try to get back into the run a little bit too soon, but you don't want to bear those consequences, and you really deserve to get the care, as soon as you need it, which is, right at that, as soon as you can. Yeah.
What do you say to the people that are like, but I am just going to wait until I'm done having all my babies to do rehab?
So, don't do that, and don't do that for a few reasons. Now that we're a little bit out, I'm starting to kind of think about the next pregnancy, the next birth. I put a lot of work into to prepare my body for Asher, to carry him for a year and to give birth to him and then to recover from him. And I want to do that same thing, with my next baby. I feel like that I deserve that. And also it's going to be a different game. Like I said, I was able to lay on the couch and rest a lot in that pregnancy, and it's going to be different with a toddler. I know that. I've seen that with my clients. And so being able to feel good throughout your pregnancy is so important, and it can be harder when you're twice as busy. Not sleep. I don't sleep through the night.
Yeah.
I hope so one day, but we're not there yet.
Right.
And so being able to give that love to yourself and to your body is so important. And it just becomes more important as your life becomes more complex and complicated.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. I think it's interesting because like the American Gynecological Association, ACOG, they they say, space babies out 12 to 18 months until you conceive again. And I think from a nutritional standpoint, I do think there's a lot of nutritional aspects that your body has to restore. Yeah. We want to make sure your bones, like you're on a good vitamin D and calcium. Yeah. I hope you are. Yeah, and just so you have, like your bones are protected as you're breastfeeding still. But like I got pregnant while I was breastfeeding Chloe, and so we were still breastfeeding. I was pregnant through halfway through my second pregnancy, and intentionally, like that's what I wanted, and I wanted my kids spaced like that, you know. So, and I just think but my pelvic floor wasn't as happy as yours is going to be, and I do think that when you do this work, it's like it's less trauma on your body because you've already conditioned your muscles so well. And you're already started the rehab, and so it's like your body, maybe you guys do conceive at 8 months, We have Alicia in this book, she accidentally conceived at, I think it was, her kids are 15 months apart. Oh, yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. And so that was a fun story. So go read the pregnancy era book, and you can read a lot of her birth stories, but she had done this pelvic work before her first. Yeah. She was recovering from a tumor, but then she went through our whole fertility program at the time, got pregnant with her first, continued pelvic floor therapy during the first, and then through the second, then conceived right away, had very little trauma on the body because she had been doing this work the whole entire time. Yeah. And I do think that there is an air of like, when you are taking care of your body so well, by working with a pelvic floor physical therapist, getting adequate nutrition and vitamins and supplements, then you're in a really good spot to conceive again, even if you decide, okay, next month we're pregnant, Right. So I do think those guidelines, like, they are the guidelines, but I think they're the guidelines when, you're just kind of relying on maybe the natural compensations of the body pulling itself back together. Right. And not facilitating true healing that needs to happen. Yes. And I don't recommend relying on natural compensations because that is what leads to a lot of the soliloquy of hip pain down the line, incontinence down the line. If you are concerned about the price of physical therapy and like the price of getting this care, I mean, we have payment plans, we have, different options for payment, but the reality is this is going to save you money. Oh, yeah. The incontinence industry, the joint replacement, that stuff is way more expensive. And by the time you're getting that stuff done, you don't care about the money because you have the money, and you more so care about your time and investment in like wanting to be with your grandchildren or wanting to be with your own children. You want to be functional. You don't want to be debilitated. And so invest in yourself now. I cannot say that enough. Yeah. Yes, might it strain you? Just take a payment plan or do something to help you get the care. Healthcare isn't free, but I will tell you it will just get more and more expensive as you age. So do it now.
Yeah, I mean, health is wealth, right? Yeah. And so being able to be healthy for as long as possible, that is really what's most important at the end of the day. That's what all of our, our finances, our security is really to keep us safe and to keep us healthy. And so I think there's no better place to be allocating, your resources to, but to yourself and to your health.
Yeah. We all have iPhones. We all have TVs. Yes. Somehow we're listening to this podcast. Like maybe you have to sacrifice a little something, but like you can make it work. And I just think, and if you don't make time for your health now, and this is so hard as a new mom, like, I know it is so hard to make the time, but if you don't make time, like, you will have to make time for the sickness.
That's true.
And that sickness is going to take a lot longer. Yeah. And it's not going to be on your time. Mm-hmm. And so I just think that is so important to keep in mind. when we're thinking about the time, the cost investment, and all of that. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I love having you back in the clinic.
It's so nice to be back. It really is.
Super nice, yeah. So lucky. Can't wait for you to keep spitting out these babies.
Stay tuned.
Next episode. See you guys.